Hi everybody, it's Mark again, and I'm a firm believer in helping others out. And there was a gentleman who contacted me and asked me if I could help him out on a cuckoo clock. He was having trouble getting it and beat, and I told him I would. For the price of him passing it on. I believe in helping people out. Am I a rich guy? No. But I said this once before. I said a long time ago that I knew I would never be a rich man. But anyway, he sent me the movement and the chains, and I just got it out of my cleaner. I took a toothpick to all the pivot holes because I told you that an ultrasonic cleaner will not get into the hard to reach spots. And I don't know if you could see that or not. Let me move my camera. But the toothpick, as you can see, is dirty, and that's from dried up oil that accumulated and that the ultrasonic cleaner didn't clean up. So anyway, this movement is a Regula 25. Regula is a trademark for Joseph Berger. The 25 identifies it as being a one-day cuckoo clock. It's an East Meckenbecker movement. Right there it says East Meckenbecker. There is no two-digit year or letter after the 25, which they started in 1970. And so this clock was made in the 60s, and that's because it has a rack, possibly even the 50s, because there is some numbers here, but I'm going to guess that this movement was made in the 60s. So anyway, this lever right here, I did not take off. As you can see, it freely drops on its own. You want to check to make sure that the post that it's on is not loose. I did have a cuckoo movement that I was working on, and this post was loose, which caused this lever right here. And don't ask me to tell you the name of the parts. I've got a video out there that explains every part and what its function is. But anyway, the post was loose on that particular movement, causing this lever right here not to drop on its own. So you want to make sure that this lever drops on its own. So I'm going to put this movement together after I make sure that everything is working properly. You want to make sure that the ratchet wheel is working properly, and that this great wheel right here, that's what you call it, it has a plastic wheel on it. This is for the time side of the clock. This plastic wheel cannot have any cracks, and it cannot be loose on the great wheel. And you don't want to sit here and force it. You just want to do a quick shake test on it to make sure it's not loose. If it's got a crack in it, you can use, I have successfully repaired them with super glue and baking soda, but you only want to put the super glue and baking soda. The baking soda is going to adhere to the super glue, so only put the super glue in the crack. Now, if it's cracked all the way, then it's best to replace this wheel, and Time Saver sells them. I have some in my drawer over there, and I forget how much they are, maybe $1 a piece. They're not that expensive, but this is for the time side wheel. You want to make sure that this lever here has got end shake before you go any further. If it doesn't have end shake, you're going to have problems later. So putting the time side wheel on, and I'm going to get my piece of plumber's pipe. You can use a bowl. You can use a roll of wide tape, anything that will hold the movement. And this plumber's pipe has got 2 different diameters on it, and I could choose which side I want to use. And for this movement, I'm going to use the bigger size. And I want to say this is a somebody asked me in another video, stand by and let me get a tape measure. Outside diameter is 4 1/8 on that side and 3 1/2 on this side. So anyway, I'm going to use the 4 1/8 section. Time side goes on, and then I'm looking for the time side second wheel, which is this wheel right here. But before I go any further, I'm going to polish up the pivots. And I've got a video of me polishing up the pivots using a Dremel. I only polish up the pivots on the time side second wheel, which is this wheel, and the escapement wheel. And you could tell the escapement wheel because it's unlike every other wheel. It's got these sharp teeth on it. But I'm going to polish up the pivots, and I'm also going to take a wire brush to the pinion gears because there's crud inside these gears, and that will stop your clock. Again, you can take a toothpick if you want and sit here and clean them all out, or you could take your Dremel with the wire brush and clean them all out. So stand by. The polishing up the pivots, you're using an Arkansas stone. An Arkansas stone will not take away the diameter of the pivot unless you sit here and run it all day long. I'm sure it will take away the diameter of the pivot that way. Do not use a file. Use an Arkansas stone, or even a piece of wood. A piece of hard wood should polish up the pivots, but do not use a file or anything else other than an Arkansas stone, maybe a whetstone. A whetstone takes away some material because it's sharpening your knife. So if you're using a whetstone, be very careful on how you use it. You also want to take the wire brush to the virgin crutch assembly. You need to clean off the pallets as good as possible. And the pivot. I don't know how professionals clean these off, but for me, the wire brush works just fine. I've never had an issue with it not working fine. And the reason why you want to polish up the pivots on the escapement wheel and the second wheel is, or what I call the second wheel, is because it's a 1-day cuckoo clock. If it was an 8-day cuckoo clock, you'd want to polish up the pivots, the second wheel, the third wheel, and the escapement wheel. 8-day cuckoo clocks have got an extra gear in them. Actually, they have 2 extra gears, but we'll discuss that in a different video. And because you got the wire brush, you might as well clean up the other pinion gears. And when your Dremel doesn't work, use a cordless drill. Again, we're just polishing up pivots. We're not taking away material. Now, to this day, and I have over 100 cuckoo clocks, the time side is the only pivots that I polish up. And for the people who don't believe that I'm polishing pivots, the dark areas of this Arkansas stone, you can see the width of the pivot in these dark areas of this Arkansas stone. And that's how you tell whether or not you have the pivot on there flush or not, as long as it's getting the width on the Arkansas stone, if that makes sense to you. And you can purchase this Arkansas stone at Time Savers. And I don't remember what I paid for it, but this is the length of the stone. It's not that long, maybe 4 inches. Sorry, 3 inches. So now that I have those pivots polished and the pinion gears cleaned up, it's time to put this clock together. I got the time side great wheel on. Now the second wheel goes on. And then the escapement wheel. And I definitely need more light in my bedroom here, because I'm having trouble seeing, but I'm also halfway blind. This is why he couldn't get the clock to work, as there's no hole for the escapement wheel. It's going to need a bushing or a couple of bushings, because this hole is too big. And so I'm going to have to see if I can put a bushing in this movement. I don't know if I got a bushing that big. I might have to use a spare front plate movement to give him. This is a different movement, and this is the escapement wheel hole right here. And I use this movement to talk to people on, and the escapement wheel, there it goes. There's the hole for the escapement wheel. This is the hole that his movement has. See the difference? Big difference. And that's why he couldn't get his clock movement to work. An escapement wheel needs a bushing. Now I put a bushing in, and in order to put a bushing in, I had to take this lever off. And because I had to take this lever off, I'm going to go ahead and take a toothpick and clean out the post, well, the section here that sits on that post. And then put it back on and put the E-clip back on. Because this E-clip is what holds it into place. And that E-clip is not holding it. So either I picked up the wrong E-clip, or this E-clip needs some attitude adjustment. So I'm going to take a pair of pliers and squeeze this E-clip to give it an attitude adjustment. Give it a slight tug to make sure it's holding. And it is holding. Mess around with it to see if it's holding. And it seems to be holding. So anyway, the bushing that I had available was had a bore diameter of 1.20. Now, the pivot diameters on Cuckoo clocks is typically 0.8 millimeters, and I'm going to show you that. I'm sorry if I keep moving the camera around. I just want to make sure that y'all are seeing what I'm doing. 0.9, 0.8, depending on where you measure it from. 0.9 millimeters. Okay, so 1.20 is a little bit bigger than some people would suggest, but one-day Cuckoo clocks are very lenient on their bushing wear. And so when I put this thing back together, I had to use my cutting broach assembly to put this bushing in that I bought off Time Savers, and I have a video to explain all that to you. And as you can see, it is working. It has plenty of end shake, and that's what you want when you put bushings in. And you might have to bow down the inside plate like I had to when you put the bushing in. First of all, the plate was bent in some, and so I had to take a hammer and try to straighten it out as much as I could. And then after I put the bushing in, I followed it down to make sure that the escapement wheel rotates freely, and B, it has end shake. So now we can get back to where I started in putting this thing together. As long as I don't drop parts all over the place. Time side escapement wheel. Sorry, time side great wheel. Time side second wheel. The escapement wheel. And then the birch and crutch assembly. Now, if you wanted to, you could take some Rodico, and I've got a video on using Rodico that I just posted. If you want, you could take some Rodico, which costs $7 through Time Savers. It's this green stuff right here. And you could take some Rodico and you could put it so the wheels stay where you want them to stay. Okay, but because this is a one-day cuckoo clock, it's a basic one-day cuckoo clock, I don't need this Rodico. I just wanted to point out that you can use this Rodico to help you in putting the movement together if the wheels keep moving on you. Strike side great wheel, making sure that the ratchet works properly. Now this section right here is what is going to, the 8-point star wheel is going to fit on. So this section goes down first. And then you got the wheel that has the Pac-Man is going to fit on this. So this has to go down this way. And then the third wheel with warning pin. And then the ply, if I could find the ply. Here's the ply. The ply is always next to the third wheel with warning pin. It doesn't matter whether you have a cuckoo clock or a clock with Westminster chimes. And then you got this lever right here. And it goes, it's holding down the bird post, and it goes, the section with the curve on it goes between the third wheel with warning pin, and the second wheel coming off the strike side great wheel. And then your rear plate. And your rear plate is going to have to go on the virgin crutch assembly first, and then start carefully putting the pieces together. Once you can see a thread, put a nut on. Don't tighten it down too tight. I can see threads on the time side, both the upper and the lower posts. The nut's not working that well. I'll grab a different nut and see if it goes on any better. There we go. And you want to make sure that the strike side great wheel sticks up through that hole, in which I didn't have it sticking up through that hole, but now it is. I like working on the time side first. And you can use a screwdriver, a pair of tweezers, or a tool like this that I use to push and move pivots. And a lot of times just my fingers is all it takes. And once that goes into place, you tighten the nuts down further. I would say finger tight, but in this case, this top nut doesn't want to work properly. There it goes. I got to get the virgin crutch assembly to fall into place. And there it fell into place. And now I can see even more threads on the other posts. So it's time to put nuts on them. Again, I'm just starting the nuts because you have to be able to push and pull the pivots around in order for them to fall into place. And I've been doing this so long that I know which ones need to fall into place better. It's typically that wheel with the cam, the Pac-Man on it, this lever right here, which is, I believe is called the Cuckoo stopping lever, and the ply. But the third wheel warning pin needs to be pushed over. And there, it just all dropped into place. So now I can tighten the nuts up even more. And the most important part when you're doing the, one of the most important parts when you're doing the strike side is the bird post. This tab on the bird post has to be underneath this Cuckoo stopping lever rod. If it's on the outside of it, your Cuckoo will never go back in the door. And you can see it's all working fine. All the wheels are turning like they need to. If I take the Rodico away and put some pressure on the great wheel for the strike side, you'll see the virgin crutch assembly start moving. So now I could tighten up these nuts all the way because it all is fell into place. And you don't want to over tighten the nuts. You just want to tighten them up enough. So now the next step is to putting the gong and lift levers on. The longer lever, which is called the high note, bellow high note lift lever, typically falls on the bottom, and you would want to put that one on first. And just put it on and let it drop. This is called the low note lift lever, and it is typically in the middle. And then you have the gong. And it goes on last. And then you have this wire for the gong. And that wire is always, it's different for different movements. And I'm going to show you on this one, the wire goes through the hole. On some movements, there's a post the wire goes through. So I'm going to put this wire through that hole and then make it come around and tie it to itself. And I say that as if it was easy, but it's not. The wire typically doesn't want to cooperate with somebody who's blind like me. And if you don't have these hemostats, I highly recommend that you get some. Because you can grab a hold of the wire, let go of the handles, and then maneuver that wire through that hole. I had it in the hole. Let's do it again. And then you can grab a hold of it again. Once it's in that hole, tighten it up. And like I said, you want to tie this wire to itself. That's how they originally do it. So that's how I'm going to try to do it. And tweezers, I've never bought a, I don't know, $50 pair of tweezers. I always buy the cheap kind. And they tend to not grab a hold as good as they should. And so now we have a gong that works properly. I'm not going to connect these yet because I want to put the cam wheel on, and I have to put all these other levers on also. This is the what's known as the lift lock lever. The purpose of this is as the minute hand rotates, there are two different sections on this minute wheel with minute arbor. There's a long section which is for the hour and a short section which is for the half hour. And as this rotates, it lifts up the lift lock lever, which in turn lifts up the rack stop lever. Now the rack stop lever is what helps count the hours. And I got to get the cam, the Pac-Man. I believe it's in another bag, so stand by. In the other bag, it looks like this might be a bushing that was where I put that bushing. But anyway, there seems to be a couple of those bushings in this bag. But anyway, this is what is known as the gathering pallet with gathering pin. And this is how the clock stops cuckooing. I don't typically take these off because if you wear that hole out, you're going to have to put a bushing in. So taking them off, putting them back on, taking them off, putting it back on, will wear that hole out. So I don't typically take these off. And when you take them off, when you take them off, you're taking your clock out of time, so to speak. So anyway, what I'm doing is I'm grabbing a hold of the great wheel and I'm putting pressure on it so the third wheel with warning pin will rest up against the tab on the rack stop lever. And then I'm taking this cam and I'm putting it onto its post to where the shaft on the rack stop lever will fit dead center of that Pac-Man's mouth, is what I like to call it. And then I'm going to take a pair of pliers and push it down. Now it only goes so far. And so you want to do a couple function tests on it. But I also need to put the clips on this lift lock lever and rack stop lever. And I don't know if he sent me the clips, because the clips that are in this bag are E-clips and not the compression style E-clips. And if this thing took the regular E-clips, there would be slots on the inside. There would be notches on the inside of these shafts, as you call it. So it doesn't take the regular E-clips, it takes the compression style E-clips, and I just happen to have a brand new package of them, so stand by. I have a video out there on making a homemade tool to take these off and put these on. These are the compression style Regula E-clip, and I order from Time Savers, and there's the part number 20914. Now I'm gonna have to edit my video on making this tool. And if you watch the video I said in making this tool, I said that when you work on a original movement, that these compression E-clips are against the movement. And I think that they're a one-time use only thing. I have tried for the past 5 or 10 minutes trying to use this tool on these brand new clips, and they will not spread apart, and my tool keeps coming off. I have taken a pair of tweezers here and stuck it in the E-clip, and then using a screwdriver, putting pressure on the tweezers, trying to open up these clips, and they will not spread open. So the homemade tool is good for clips that are already on the movement, used movements, but brand new E-clips, this homemade tool can work if you put notches in the outside to grab these clips, or they're going to keep slipping off. And when you put notches in this homemade tool and try to spread it apart, more than likely you're going to break the teeth off.